Have you ever experienced diarrhea, abdominal pain, vomiting, or a fever? These are common symptoms of the infectious diseases of the gastrointestinal tract. The gastrointestinal tract is a pathway that food takes from your mouth through the esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine. GI infections are very common, and diarrhea is the most common cause of death in developing countries. Pathogens causing diarrhea can be transmitted to humans in 3 basic ways: in food, in water, or from person to person. Today we'll be going over 4 diseases of the GI tract, including Escherichia coli, Salmonella Enterica cerevars, rotavirus, and norovirus.
The characteristics of Escherichia coli are that the bacteria is gram-negative, making it pink in color. They are rod-shaped, non-spore-forming, motile, and they are covered all over with distroflagella or non-motile. They can grow under aerobic and anaerobic conditions and do not produce enterotoxins, making them facultative anaerobes. The cells are typically 1.1 to 1.5 micrometers wide by 2 to 6 micrometers long, and they occur as a single straight rod. They are part of the Enterobacteriaceae family, and the colony morphology of E. coli is determined as either a rough or a smooth form. The pathogenic properties of E. coli are that it can affect a wide range of eukaryotic cellular processes, including cell signaling, iron secretion, protein synthesis, mitosis, cytoskeletal function, and mitochondrial function. The virulence factors of pathogenic E. coli are frequently encoded on genetic elements such as plasmids, bacteriophages, and pathogenicity islands that can be mobilized into different strains to create novel associations of virulence factors. The genes that encode virulence factors of pathogenic E. coli are controlled by both pathotype-specific regulators that are absent from dependent E. coli and by housekeeping balances that are present in dependent E. coli. E. coli bacteria normally live in the intestine of healthy people and animals, and people can be exposed to E. coli from contaminated water or food, especially raw vegetables and undercooked ground beef. Although most strains of E. coli are harmless, others can make you sick. The symptoms of E. coli are diarrhea, urinary tract infections, respiratory illness, pneumonia, and other illnesses. The period of illness for E. coli is about 5 to 7 days, and 5 to 10% of people are diagnosed with type of E. coli called Shiga toxins. People can get diagnosed with E. coli through their doctor sending a sample of their stool to a laboratory to test for the presence of E. coli bacteria. The bacteria can be cultured to confirm the diagnosis and identify specific toxins. Prevention of E. coli can be done by understanding the chances of getting food poisoning, practicing proper hygiene, especially good hand washing, washing fruits and veggies well under running water, cooking meats thoroughly, and not causing cross-contamination in food preparation areas, avoiding raw milk, unpasteurized dairy products and juices, and not swallowing water when swimming will all prevent you from E. coli. Although no vaccine is available for the treatment of E. coli, a person can get a good rest and drink lots of fluids to help prevent dehydration and fatigue. Current news about E. coli is that in October of this year, FDA traced an E. coli outbreak and found that it was related to falafels sold at Aldi stores. 20 people were affected, and from that 20, 5 of them had severe illnesses that required them to be hospitalized.
Salmonella infection is a common bacterial disease that affects the intestinal tract. Salmonella bacteria typically live in animal and human intestine and are shed through stool. Humans become infected most frequently through combination water or food. Characteristics of Salmonella: both non-specific and specific host defense are active. It is gram-negative, bacilli-shaped, characterized by O, H, and VI antigens. Pathogenic Salmonella ingested in food survive passage through the gastric acid barrier and invade the mucosa of the small and large intestine and produce toxin. Invasion of the epithelial cells stimulates the release of pro-inflammatory cytokine, which induce an inflammatory reaction. leading to the bacteria to disseminate from the intestine to cause systemic disease. Signs and symptoms. The first is diarrhea. Diarrhea may last up to 10 days. Second, abdominal cramps. Only some may experience. Third, fever. It is only a possible symptom. And last, nausea, also a possible symptom. Period of illnesses can last up to 6 hours or 6 days. Some may confuse it with the stomach flu. The diagnosis is confirmed by isolating the organism from clinical specimens. Prevention. It can be prevented in several ways, such as preparing food safely, hand washing, avoiding contamination, and not eating raw meat, dairy, or egg products. Treatment. Because salmonella infection can cause dehydration, treatment focuses on replacing lost fluids and electrolytes, minerals that balance the amount of water in the body. In addition to drinking plenty of fluids, you may also be recommended to take antidiarrheals and antibiotics. Current news about salmonella. In October 2022, there was a salmonella linked to fish. There were 33 illnesses were reported and 13 hospitalizations in 3 states. Investigation is still currently active.
Rotavirus is a part of the family Reoviridae and is the most common cause of diarrheal diseases among infants and young children, typically ages 3 to 35 months. Its structure is non-enveloped, containing 11 segments of double-stranded RNA and a triple-layered capsid structure. As you can see in these pictures, they are well known for their wheel-like shape. Rotavirus first enters the body through the fecal-oral route, then it infects the GI tract where viral replication occurs in the small intestine. People who are infected shed the virus in their stool, which is how the virus gets back into the environment and infects other people. The high-risk group is unvaccinated children ages 3 months to 3 years old. The most common symptoms of rotavirus are severe watery diarrhea, vomiting, fever, and abdominal pain. Symptoms can occur 2 days after exposure, and vomiting and diarrhea can last 3 to 8 days. Other symptoms may include loss of appetite and dehydration, which is especially dangerous for infants and young children.
The way rotavirus is diagnosed is by analyzing the feces of an individual who you think is infected with rotavirus. There are 2 methods of diagnosing. One way is through a test called Aliza, which stands for Enzyme-Linked Immunosorbent Assay, and another method called PCR, which means polymerase chain reaction, and these help detect the virus. Now, the best way to prevent rotavirus is with vaccines. 2 vaccines are currently available for infants, Rototec and Rotarix. Both are licensed for infants in the US. Getting the vaccine helps reduce the chances of getting the infection and also helps with the suffering of the disease if the child were to still get the infection. For treatment for rotavirus is self-limited, meaning it only lasts for a few days because of the immune system doing all the work. But there are ways to support the treatment, and the best way is to maintain hydration because usually patients become severely dehydrated when infected. So keeping yourself hydrated is the best way. Some current news about rotavirus is in 2018 to 2021, the World Health Organization pre-qualified 2 additional vaccines coming from India. As of January 2022, 114 countries have introduced rotavirus vaccines. And rotavirus vaccines prevents an estimated 40,000 to 50,000 hospitalizations among the US.
Norovirus. Characteristics of norovirus include that it spreads easily, only taking less than 100 norovirus particles for an individual to become sick. As the name suggests, it is a virus, it's non-enveloped, and single-stranded RNA. For its pathogenic properties, it comes from the genus family Caliciviridae. It enters via the mouth, normally from contamination of feces and food, liquids, water sources, airborne particles from someone's vomit, or other contaminated surfaces, known as fomites. According to the CDC, is the most common cause of foodborne illness outbreaks. It infects the intestinal immune cells and enterocytes. Main signs and symptoms include diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, and stomach pain. Others include fever, headache, and body ache. Symptoms may lead to dehydration. Symptoms of dehydration include decreased urination, dry mouth and throat, feeling dizzy when standing up, and in children it looks like fewer or no tears when crying, and being unusually fussy or sleepy. Norovirus symptoms develop 12 to 48 hours after being exposed. The majority of people with norovirus recover between 1 to 3 days. However, severe cases can last up to 6 weeks. Norovirus is most contagious from the first few days of illness, but can still spread around 2 weeks after symptoms disappear. Stool or vomit samples may be required to diagnose norovirus, and water and food could also be tested as a source for contamination. You can prevent norovirus by washing your hands properly with warm water and soap, especially before and after using their bathroom, changing diapers, and handling food, for example. Norovirus can survive temperatures as high as 145 degrees Fahrenheit, so food that cooks quickly, it is very important to make sure it is cooked to its safety temperature, otherwise it will not be hot enough to kill the virus. And do not cook when you are sick, or do not take care of people as you can transfer the disease to them, and clean all messes and accidents thoroughly. There are no current medicine or vaccine treatments for norovirus, and as the name suggests, since it is a virus, antibiotics will not work. Drink plenty of non-caffeinated liquids to prevent dehydration, replenishing what was lost from vomiting and diarrhea. And norovirus cases return to its pre-COVID levels, with last year the CDC reporting there's 992 outbreaks. The National Institute of Health also discovered that in mice, the norovirus can grow in the salivary glands and spread via saliva. They are still doing studies to see if this is true for humans as well. And in April and May of this year, there is a norovirus outbreak in the Grand Canyon with over 150 people reporting their illness, and part of this was because they were not properly sourcing water or handling it once it's been treated.
Now that we learned about 4 infectious diseases of the gastrointestinal tract, it is safe to remember to practice proper hygiene by washing hands, prepare food in a safe manner, and keep our surfaces around us clean to prevent contaminating our food and water.